point where they're just murdering people that they disagree with, which is generally bad for everybody, and it's pretty dangerous. Yeah. Well, anything you guys want to say about that before I try to figure out what else to move on to?
I just want to say, like, to Charlie and his family and everyone, you know, there's a lot of people pulling for you guys and praying for you. I mean, it's just terrible. Like, you don't have to be friends with the guy to feel for what's just happened. You don't need to respect the guy. I mean, anything like this is just disgusting. I already was having a rough day today, and this is just kind of blown my top a little bit. It's disgusting. I mean, if the footage that I'm looking at right now is real, it doesn't look good, and it just doesn't look good at all in any retrospect. I mean, anyone seems to be able to be a target. Like, I mean, Trump was shot at twice recently, and now you think you can go to a school and have a debate with people to talk about what's better for the world, and someone shows up and just straight up tries to murder someone, regardless of who it is. It's just awful. So I hope the footage I'm looking at is clickbait, and I hope that he's okay, and I hope everyone there is okay. Yeah, it's just, it'll be interesting to see what happens after this, because, you know, if the shooter was black or something like that, it would be a lot different. So let's see, now that the shoe's on a different racial foot, let's see what happens. Let's see how it's handled.
I bet you nothing of significance is going to happen because of this.
I'm sorry, Chris?
I bet you nothing of significance is going to change or happen because of the shooting.
Oh, well, if he survives, he's going to be like the most popular guy on Earth.
Even if he didn't survive, I bet you nothing would significantly change or alter because of this shooting. Same with the stabbing too. Like, I don't think the result of that is really going to lead to any meaningful change in policy or legislation.
The one on the bus?
Yeah, I don't think either of these cases is ever going to lead to any significant change that's going to be meaningful or positively impactful to our day-to-day lives as an American. Not going to happen. But what will happen is a bunch of people are going to get pissed off and emotional and start pushing one political narrative over the other and find more reasons to hate their fellow Americans. I believe that's going to happen because this has happened.
Yeah, that was my
over and over
again. What you said, I was going to disagree with you and just say that because, you know, again, regardless of what this is, like we're going to have to go into the Ukrainian stabbing on the bus too. A is here, and he just brought up the helicopter crash, which is like another thing that we'll have to talk about. You know, there was this crazy helicopter crash that happened earlier where a bunch of people were flying. I think the main tail boom separated midair, and then a helicopter crash. So it's just been like, it's been kind of heavy. It's been kind of a heavy day generally. But just to reiterate your point is that this is going to be used. Everything, people's lives are now just used. You know, it's nothing new, I guess. People's lives are used all the time. That's a good point. But it's weird. It hits home a little harder when it's your friends and it's people you know. Like, and I already just saw a comment because I posted on X saying, you know, like prayers for Charlie, you know, because he's got like a family that needs him, like friends who love him, and like God's on his side, you know, something like that. And we've already got like a comment from someone who says, F him, you know, from BYU is overrated, right? So like, I'm sure there's plenty of people that just hate this guy, and it is what it is, that they're like grateful that someone's gonna get murdered. I said, that's a crazy thing to say about anyone who's just been murdered for speaking. Hopefully he hasn't been. I would say the same if Destiny or Vaush was shot, right? Who I know both of them too. And I would say the same freaking thing, like that. It sucks when like a real person, and it's one thing if it's just a crisis actor or something, but this is like a real person who has a real family, and yeah, try to find some humanity. But you're right, what's going to happen is this will be used to accelerate the police state. It's really kind of the thing this week that's been going on for a lot of people. I've noticed that. I said, and just like that, the left stopped caring about Ukrainians, and MAGA started begging for the police state. They've been protesting for decades.
Well, it's the greatest, it's the best advertiser for companies like Palantir. I mean, what you were saying, how like it's just going to lead to acceleration of like police state. The modern iteration of that is like like advanced tracking systems that's going to, yeah, we'll let out the crazy black guy from custody 12 times in a row, but now we have like crazy surveillance systems where we're going to know every single thing he does, and everyone's going to everyone's going to buy into it, because they're going to be like, we don't want another poor white girl getting stabbed on the bus.
Yeah, I just want to say my disdain for any sort of violence, abuse, or corruption of free will is equal, no matter whether it's publicized or not. Although, of course, I do understand if you personally know someone, it hits home even harder. What I'd like to bring up, exactly what you said, terror risk in terms of Palantir and the police state. I'm also really wondering whatever agencies, security details in whatever way, shape, or form would usually be responsible to keep individuals safe. I'd like to know exactly what they're doing, and whether maybe to some extent they're deliberately letting off because they know that then we can have a super ultra Palantir 1984 police state, everyone with a chip in their head finally. And the very same thing maybe regarding all this so-called crime in Europe now. I'm not going to get into more details, or even what's happening in America. So I really want to know to what extent this is not prevented as much as it maybe could be, in order to allow these things to further and these projects to proceed, which of course make a lot of money. And we know that this whole idea of completely controlling, even legally, everyone, latest since the Patriot Act, is a very big thing and a big item on the agenda. And one last thing I want to say. So we have, important, of course, tomorrow is 9/11. That may be an interesting thing. And it is the 25th anniversary, if that's correct. We're 25. So it's the 25th, 24th anniversary, something along those lines.
Yeah, it's crazy. Of course, September 11th. That was something I wanted to talk about earlier. I'm totally scattered by this. I'll be totally honest. This actually got me. This one got me. Got me to feel. It's pretty good. Pretty impressive. I'm pretty good at that usually. Damn, bro. Like, I feel pretty straight. Pretty crazy. Yeah. If you thinking about saying inappropriate messages. I'm not saying you can't send inappropriate messages, but YouTube is. You're not going to get away with it. So if you want to send inappropriate, or rather, as I like to call it, uncensored messages. Hey, what's up, Tawny? You can go to this book I read as a kid, Herschel and the Hanukkah Goblins. It's one of my favorite books. This is one of those MK Ultra programming they had as a kid, written by Trina Shart Hyman. It's about this wandering Jew who finds his way into a haunted house at Hanukkah time, and there's all these goblins there, and each one of the goblins has a problem and he helps them. This goblin's got his hand stuck in a pickle jar. Very Andrew Wilson versus Owen Benjamin kind of vibes. I was sending it to Owen earlier too. And the whole thing is the goblin wants to get him, but he can't because his hand's stuck in the pickle jar. So he's like, well, if you promise not to hurt me, I'll help you get your hand out. And he's like, all you have to do is let go of the pickles so your hand gets smaller, and then you can release yourself from there. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you a lot. I appreciate it. You're a good and tried and true mod. You know what? You stepped up to the plate, eh? Like, I appreciate that. You're a good guy. So yeah, like I said, you can guys, if you want to say stuff that you don't, that one should not say on YouTube, you can do that on FChat. So just, you can hop into the FChat and you can say whatever you want. I mean, it's why we built that thing. Thank you, Tawny, for making it happen. Okay, September 11th, Arena, the Ukrainian girl. That was the one I wanted. I was like thinking, do we even talk about contemporaneous zeitgeist? Like, that's not our thing, but it's one of those ones where this whole time, I feel like this will be enough to like cut for like a year. It kind of sums up what's going on with psychological operations, because it's just been really crazy for me watching all of my friends, because I know a lot of these, like I know Alex Jones, all the InfoWars people. Alex Jones, the way I found him, was originally like protesting Waco, saying that Waco, with the alcohol, fire, tobacco, ATF, attacking and murdering innocent civilians just because they had guns of their own, was wrong, right? And that there's a suspicion. And he's, one of the first things Alex talked about was, before Palantir, 1998, 99, was like government chips in your hands, government trackers, the idea that the government's going to be watching everything you do. This is before cell phones were computers and they were tracking devices in your pockets. So it's weird for me to watch InfoWars go from being like, be careful about the government, be careful that if the left hand slaps you, that the right hand, helps you. Don't believe that just because they hit you with one stick or with one whip, that you want the sugar bread in the other hand, right? This is the stick and carrot routine. And now all of a sudden you've got everyone up in arms about this one stabbing. Now, like I was just in Dresden where we talked about this guy on the same tram that I take every day. He got his nose sliced off because he was trying to save some girls that were being accosted, assaulted, and beaten by some refugees. And I was already thinking, like, this is already pretty crazy where this is leading, because Germany's shifting fast. Europe's shifting fast. This whole idea of refugee tolerance and liberal democracy. Serbia right now, it's just like everyone's in the streets in Serbia ever since USAID money was found transgendering kids, with like every government agency is being shut down. New ones are being built. And, you know, Serbia wants a new election as soon as possible. They're going to have an early election because they want to get rid of their president, who's been working with this USAID from the former government. Classical liberals are not known to be Serbians are not known to be like NATO, Gladio, West American support. Like after Kosovo, after the bombing, like Serbia is not known for being an ally to America. They're known for working with Russia. And all of a sudden, this new president, there's been embargoes. They've been taking money from Russian citizens. They've been making it really hard for the Eastern Slavic alliances, specifically through Serbia. And the people are finding out and they're pissed about it. So there's all kinds of riots, all kinds of protests. You've seen what happened in Italy with the new government. Hopefully, if you know, like in Italy, like they went from a leftist liberation theology, Jesuit aligned government to kicking out refugees. There's a lot of stuff changing in Europe. And then in America, you have the arena thing. And it's this enigmatic thing. Like when I look at this picture, I hate to be like, she's not real, because I'm sure she's a real person. I'm just saying that the picture to me looks like this feels, in its AI generated video, but do you know how many AI generated faces I've seen and how unreal this whole thing feels? And it's crazy. This is Chase, one of my favorite people in the world. And he's pushing this whole rhetoric that the reason this happened is because Joe Biden created a soft government that was soft on corruption, soft on refugees, was, you know, soft police, and that this led to a time in America where there's lawlessness and disorder.
I hate to say it, but you can't waste a good tragedy, right? For anyone. If you have any kind of agenda, you can't waste it. Like it's very, very rare that life just hands you a perfectly good narrative to exploit for your own ends, right?
That's totally true. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if life hands it to you or if it's created, because I think that's kind of the point, is that if you start releasing psychopaths into the streets and then you let them eventually murder people, then you have better than mind control victim tragedies. This is the other thing that's kind of crazy about that story we're going to go into in a second, about what the murderer said actually after this, because he's just been recently recorded. But yeah, I wanted to find the picture. Where is it? Oh, did I close it just now? Here. Yeah, there's all of these tech CEOs who are aligned with, you know, like Elon Musk and everything, are giving millions of dollars in $10,000 grants to paint Arena's face all over America in these giant murals. So pretty soon in every street, or at least in every city, there's going to be a street where you're going to see this face everywhere. And it's going to be used, like you just said.
Might as well just put up a sign that says "Watch out for black guys." You know, they could randomly stab you on the train. So, and
that's a big part of it too, is this idea of you know, we were for such a long time saying America had problems outward. We have to be careful about problems outside, you know, with refugees and everything else. And now it's going to be easier to turn that inward and be like, well, we got to really worry about American citizens causing trouble now. Like it's really interesting. First, they came for the homicidal illegal immigrants, right? And I said nothing because I wasn't a homicidal illegal immigrant. Then they came for just the border violators, just people generally who violated borders. And I said nothing because I wasn't a border violator.
Then they went after the schizos.
And now they're coming after the schizos. And once they're done with the schizos, what's next? Then you come after anyone who was supportive of a liberal democracy, anybody at all. So very soon it'll just be general Americans could be picked up for the same. This is ISIS to ICE. This is what I'm saying when I say that. We're going from Sharia to vapor Sharia. It's ISIS to ICE. And people vote like they want it, you know?
maybe I could make a business out of becoming like, you know, everyone's saying vigilante justice. Maybe it's time for me to become like a street bodyguard, you know, with my sword. I'll protect you white people with my Asian katana skills for some gold coins, of course.
But of course.
Do you just hide messages that YouTube says to hide? I think the automated system is probably pretty good. If you see something that's like really, really bad, but we're kind of okay. I think, you know, like even this one, like people have the right to have their opinions. Like the Trump attempt assassination was a hoax. Like we can leave those up. I don't know. I mean, obviously if the comment's really bad, but I have like Autobots to find like cursing and bad words and things like that. So generally speaking, it's probably okay. But if you see something that like really I mean, you got to think of it from an American angle. We try to push for this idea of free speech. I don't know how long that's going to go for today. Look at what's happening in the world. They're trying to take away free speech from everybody, equalize this with China, and make sure you're not allowed to say anything. But yeah, if you know, just be kind of lenient on it unless you think it's like really, really terrible, I guess. And generally, you know, just remind people if you see their names, like if you guys want to say something that you think is going to get me in trouble, do it on F chat instead of on YouTube. That's all I'm saying. Cause we're trying to keep the show like above the board as best as we can. Okay. So I wanted to show you what the killer, the stabber, right. Of the arena girl had said recently. So this is interesting to me. DeCarlos Brown Jr. speaks from jail for the first time since the brutal murder of Arena. He claims that the government implanted materials in his body that made him commit this horrific crime. Now,
oh man,
you know,
oh shit!
now, I mean, he got
this
me.
just got spicy.
You get me right. You hit me right where it counts, you know? Like, you hit my friends,
Yeah.
and we start talking about MK Ultra, mind control stuff that we know is real. Like, you can go look at CIA.gov reading room and library.
Yeah,
see
they wound him. You know, they wound him up and they let him loose.
This is the quote. The materials put like that. The material using my body. It's that. You know, that's not me. I'm talking about just for no reason. But since they did that, now they got to investigate the material my body exposed to. Since they want to do all that, now they got to investigate. So, I mean, of course, you know, if you murdered somebody and you wanted to say you were crazy and get off the hook, you would say that there are robots in my blood that are controlled
or spiders
by
in my skin.
Yeah, like whatever. But this is one of those weird ones because we know that this exists. There are definitely nanobots. There's definitely radio controlled graphene. There's weird stuff. There's weird stuff out there. And there's plenty of stories about psyops where people have had their
we call them assets.
Their assets engaged. Yeah. They've been activated. Assets have been activated and deactivated. And it does look really weird. If you've seen the footage, I don't want to show you someone getting stabbed, you know, or shot or any of the stuff that you could see on CNN or something instead. But yeah, if you want to see, you can watch this guy sitting there kind of looking, you know, maybe irritable, but not like he's going to stab somebody. And then all of a sudden, boom, he just goes crazy on this girl who's wearing she's wearing like a black hat to cover her hair. She's wearing a black hoodie. She's not wearing some nice dress or, you know, she's not making a big scene of herself. She's not like a target that's sticking out or anything like that. She looks like Jordan right now, except for the facial hair. Like it's completely reasonable to sit on this bus. And all of a sudden this dude goes crazy and stabs her. Now, obviously, I'm not just saying I don't believe necessarily that this guy is like
it's like a Manchurian candidate.
Manchurian candidate. But I know that exists. I mean, I know it's possible. And it's a lot more likely these days than ever before. And it's the kind of thing that happens. It exists. So how am I supposed to not wonder about that? And yeah, they should investigate that. But who's going to investigate it?
I mean, that's what, like, I went through that point of paranoia, you know, when you slip into that shit, those rabbit holes. And I was like, there's literally nothing. There's nowhere you could hide. You can't even hide in the depths of your mind. Like they could alter frequencies in your brain, supposedly. And I found like the one thing, I know it's like, it sounds kind of tangential, but it's God. Like, I think that's the one thing they can't really fuck with. Is your connection to the source, but everything else is like open game. Like every facet of your identity could be twisted and exploited until you go so crazy you decide to just stab random people on a train, you know. I'm not saying go ahead and go be religious, but I can't think of anything else, you know? Family easily exploited, your job easily exploited, your culture, your nationality, your identity, your sexual everything. Except for I guess being thankful to God. You know, like what else is there? There's nowhere else is safe.
Anybody got thoughts?
I'm having a tough time processing with everything going on. So no.
Well, I'll just say that we are constantly embedded in all kinds of frequencies, many of which we are woefully unaware of. Environmental stressors and all kinds of things, not even talking about particular medical procedures or other things that people do to their body, even diet, which may be polluted in some way, shape, or form. And that is, from what I understand, the reason why individuals like to detox through various means. And also, for example, from what I understand, why the Muslims of all individuals put their head on the ground 5 times a day. And we don't need to make it about something religious, but in terms of reconnecting with, if it exists, something along the lines of the Schumann frequency, to actually clear your head out of all these things which come up. And recently I talked to a psychic, a friend of mine who's a Reiki healer, if people give any credence to that. And they basically said that usually people are very congested in the brain area. Like there's so much energy there. And of course that will confuse, will stress people out and all of that. So it might make sense to, you know, put your head on the ground, touch grass, ideally not next to a 5G antenna or whatever else, high powered
Walk
EMF.
barefoot in the lawn.
Exactly. All of those things to actually, de-stress, reorganize the electrical system that you have and balance it out. So then hopefully you can have more connection to what terrorist says, God or source, and be less influenced by all the craziness, whether it's just, you know, culture and information through the radio or the screen, EMF frequencies, all these other things that are all around us in especially the Western world.
Don't get
Yeah,
psyop,
speaking
guys.
of which,
It's a holy war, a spiritual war, a psychic war.
you know, in COVID stratus, because so this boomer, this is the guy they found the gun, this Democrat
Bernie
boomer,
Sanders looking motherfucker.
Yeah, and so this is of course going to be used to mobilize the young Republicans, I guess, especially against like the old left boomers. I mean, which are the ones who are usually not. I mean, do you understand the difference between social democrat, Marxist, Antifa, and the Democrats? Because there's a lot of nuance there, especially from this generation. But there's the post I'm reading from Tom Woods. Tom Woods says, this boomer who believes everything the television says to him, interesting, and who probably obeyed every useless COVID measure because he thought it was keeping people safe, just shot Charlie Kirk for holding opinions that any sane person held up 10 years ago, right? So this is already pushing because they're going to use it against everything. And a big one's going to be this COVID stratus vaccine that they're going to push for. This is the new variant that people are saying that they're getting. The newspapers are saying, I don't know if newspapers exist. CNN saying exists.
Yeah, what is interesting is I recently saw this video of, I almost want to say one of the Trumps, but anyhow, individual officially purported to be Trump, talking about the so-called injections and basically starting a beef, I think, with the government of Florida or the governor, who were like, well, or the medical director of Florida, however you call that, the main head guy, who basically says we want to make all vaccines optionals and not mandate any of them. Whereas Trump appears to say, yeah, maybe there's certain ones that are bad, maybe also pandering to the RFK audience, while there may be some, if I understand correctly, which are great and amazing and incredibly effective. And supposedly, according to some individuals, this should be a push simply to phase out the old variants they have, in this case, variants of medical procedures, and bring in the beloved Oracle sponsored or whatever mRNA stuff. Yeah, I wonder just how well they tested it and how well proven the trials are which they were running. Cough, cough.
Yeah, mRNA, gene editing, that should sound safe.
Dude, what a great job. What a great job to have. Ask your doctor which vaccine is right for you. I stand with Israel. Yeah, that's where we're at today. This is wild. I don't know. Dang, bro. That's just crazy. That's just some crazy stuff today. It's just some wild stuff.
I've
I
also
don't
been
know. I don't
I've been
even.
rewatching the Born Identity movies, and we're talking about psyops, and I'm like, oh man, this is probably not where my head should be right now, but it is.
Remind me about that movie. I know I saw it, but like, so he's an agent who doesn't remember something like that.
Yeah, he's a government hitman, and
Forgets that he's a government hitman in the first one, right? And then that's kind of building up the story of him getting his memory back. Sorry, Chris, but you take it away, buddy.
I mean, that was absolutely correct. And I think the real meat of it wasn't really that like plot. It was the backdrop of like how they build up these assets, you know, and basically like breaking them down. And by the later movies, it turned into like, oh, we just engage with like complete gene editing with chemicals, like with drugs. Like they're able to do like chemical behavioral modification by introducing viral targeting to your genes, and to turn you into a more efficient killer, smarter person, able to suppress pain better. That's when it got a little like spicy for me. I was like, oh, okay, so they're doing that now.
Yeah, dude, we're getting to that point where everyone is at somehow or not. I mean, the less you spend time interacting with different kinds of people from around the world, and the less outside, and the more time you spend getting your information pumped to you from reliable sources, the more decisions you make and reactions you have based on your training. So it's funny because at some point people would have thought it was impossible to mind control or to program someone to behave a certain way. But today, everyone's programmed. Everyone's programmed in different ways based on the rhetoric that they're hearing. And you see it everywhere you go, that there's not a single person left. I mean, there's probably a few Amish maybe, but even them, I'm sure they're programmed in some way. They all have Snapchat, I saw. So generally people, you know.
Well, I mean, I totally agree with you about the programming bit. And I think another significant aspect is maybe it's a minority, maybe it's going to be everybody eventually, but this idea of programming yourself, like to reason that if I have to abide by a program throughout my material life, then at least let me try to do my best to set my own programs. And I guess that's when pattern recognition becomes really important and whatnot. Because really your programming is your daily habits, is like the cycle of emotions you go through in your stimulus, in your day-to-day stimulus. Like that's really how you control a person's reality. If you could control the pattern of them feeling scared at first, then happy, then sad, and then angry, like if you could control that cycle, you basically control their fucking world. You know, that's like a third of their existence, their emotions.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like originally what I was going to talk about a bit is like the loneliness and that people are experiencing. You know, more and more people are isolated from each other, and so this is something that was used in mind control tactics, like North Korean mind control was about the group mentality and isolation. If you're isolated from the group, then you feel like you need to get back to the group. If you're with the group, then you try to maintain a homeostasis with the group. So if you get 5 soldiers that are in mind control camp and like they're in a prison camp, and you say everyone has to do the same thing, they all have to do 100 push-ups, they have to run, they all have to say, you know, read the Communist Manifesto, whatever it is, right? If one of them doesn't do it, then nobody gets fed. And so you eventually get to the point where everyone's like, why aren't you doing this? The rest of us are suffering because of your actions. And that group mentality is so powerful for lonely people. If you were an only child, if you were isolated, if you were kept from friends or away from the world, then you're looking for a group somehow. A lot of people are programmed to look for a group that they can normalize to.
I mean, now it's all like visually enforced, right? I'm sure if I sat here, I could pretty much assume that everyone has this image embedded in their brain of like that red jacketed dude standing up behind like a hunched over little girl. Like, I think that's it's that deep, you know. It's, you just have to force feed images over and over and over again to kind of just put everyone on the same page, so to speak.
I mean, it's part of our identity because so many people, when did this start also that identity was an aesthetic with commercialism and everything? If you're a skater, you dress like a skater. If you're a punk, you dress like a punk. And so in high school, you know, you have a scene, people can see you and see which scene you're in, and you behave based on the programming that you're saying, okay, I'm going to be a surfer, I'm going to be a skater, I'm going to be a pothead, or I'm going to be a football player, right?
Yeah. I mean, I won't lie. Like I think that's all manifestation works kind of like that. Like you can't just say, I want this identity. You have to immerse yourself in that. Like, oh, must be what it would feel like if I was able to do that.
So I'm just bringing up the network from 1976. And why is this speech so accurate today? Everyone knows things are bad. Everyone's scared, losing their job, dollar buys a nickel's worth. And then, as you guys know, at the end, he's saying, this goddamn tube of a TV, which in this case as well could be social media and all associated things, just turn it off. Turn it off now. That's what I'm thinking.
Put the controller down, Snake.
Sparrow sent in 20. Thank you, Sparrow. Stay safe out there, guys. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's awesome. Yeah, we got to be careful.
Yeah, thanks, Sparrow.
Where did I sit down? This is a trick question. You think I sat down? I was so sick of sitting in class, I would walk around to all the different scenes, of course. I'd go, like my mom was a doctor, so she used to do rounds. So I always called it rounds. I would do rounds to all the different cliques and scenes and see them all.
That's how I was like too, dude. Yeah, man. Yeah.
Or if you're at a party, you're like, I'll be right back. I got to do my rounds, and I'll be like, all right, see you later, Andreas.
See you in a couple hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like you can't, I mean, the whole idea of just being in one group just seems kind of crazy. That's like literally the most dangerous thing you can do. And, it seemed always like a big problem. They're gangs. There's just different gangs of people. The cliques are different. It's like a different color of the spectrum. And everyone's locked in their thing. So they'll think, oh, hey, you're part of us. You see things like us, but they hate each other. So if you can be, if they see that you understand another group of people that they hate, then they feel like you don't understand them, that you are separate from them. And there's no way that you're allowed to feel multiple empathies or have different perspectives at the same time. I get this a lot where people say, wow, you love or you hate this thing. Like I'll get in the same video, like the first half of it, people say, oh, you hate this policy. Man, you're an idiot. And the other group, then the next half, like the other group says, oh man, you love this policy. You're an idiot. So it's the fact that you can have different weighing perspectives at the same time is not socially acceptable. It makes you isolated, less inclusive. It's more exclusive because you're not you're not supporting the group mentality for any of these little groups. But that cosmopolitan approach is also shared by some other group, it seems, who runs the campus. The whole campus is run by somebody who has 30 or 40 different cliques on their campus. And you have to imagine what's going on in the office at some point, or the police officer on squad, or the principal. They have to know. They've got they've got their fingers in every clique. There's always one kid at least they have every kid forced to go to a guidance counselor at some point or other, right? They know you, they know everybody, and they know how these groups interact with each other. It's all isolated nationalism controlled by cosmopolitan globalists, and it's trained in you from such an early age.
Just regular socializing things.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting that people want to find like a single click. That's it's safe. I get that, but that also shapes your identity so much. It shapes your work and your identity because it decides what you're going to do, what skills you have. If you have,
I think it's because it's. Oh, sorry. What were you saying?
Just one sentence. Maybe that's weird coming from me, but my first thought when I hear that from Andreas is like, that's weak. I mean, maybe you want to elaborate on that. Why I'm saying that, you can probably relate.
I think I think the compulsion to go into cliques is normal. It's just we don't really regret it till it's too late. Like you're thinking, oh yeah, I'm gonna be a skater forever, or I'm gonna be a punk forever, and then you're like 30 something, and then you outgrow it, and then you could either like cling to it, and it's probably not good for you. It probably ends up as a liability, but yeah, I think that's generally what it is. Personally, I never felt comfortable. Well, at this point, I don't feel comfortable in any in-group because I'm just not used to it. Like growing up, I was actively rejected because, that's like, get away from us, Asian kid. It's like I was just that weird Asian kid in the Western schools. So I guess that's just became my norm, and now
it's too bad, man, because I was so good at branding Korean kids in my school. I always liked the Korean kids. I was like, dude, the Korean kids, because they've got soul, you know, like that's your you need that as your brand. And also Oran Agi means ice ice baby. I remember figuring that out from the Korean exchange student.
I mean, don't get me
was
wrong.
young.
Also, it's like among the Korean kids, like when I went to Korean school on Saturdays, I didn't really fall in with them either because they were all into like very fobby Korean shit, and it was just too much for me. I was like, nah, this seems pretty reductive. Like I don't want to get into that. I don't want to talk about church all week before going to church at the end of the week. Like,
oh my God.
You know?
Yeah, I do feel like most people, because they're not, I mean, I guess, maybe I don't understand. Is it nature? Is it nature to want to find your place in the ecosystem, and it's to find a small orbital? Because it does seem like a lot of people aren't looking to run around and meet all the different people. They're afraid to do that, or they feel like they'll be judged or isolated. And so they're just trying to find like 3 to 5. I mean, there's this managerial theory, right? Like, is it 3 to 7 people, 5 to 7 people is considered an efficient managerial group? And they did this in school. They would start to put tables in the school to have 5 kids at a table, so they could start training people to be in these work teams, teamwork. It's all 1800s managerial theory, whether or not you can work together. The perfect team size is 6. The amount of people that you can have a village is like 130, 150 or something
what is it,
like that.
The Dunbar number or something?
The Dunbar number, exactly.
Yeah, I think there's a natural propensity in terms, to, find your peers, people that share interest, all of that. Maybe you can have inside jokes with them and so on. Maybe not surprisingly, even though I had all kinds of friends, I wouldn't necessarily say I ever was in any type of clique in that particular way. I think where it turns kind of sour if you only do that is if then you stop relating to other individuals or other groups, supposedly, stop empathizing, and again, are only in your echo chamber reinforcing whatever maybe not entirely accurate beliefs and principles they may have, rather than actually trying to find your own path. I mean, I guess maybe there's many reasons why some people are more conformist and some are more individualist. I can only assume that most people joining and watching here are more of the individualist streak. However, still we associate in some way, shape, or form. So I guess
because we're all schizophrenic.
Having a healthy balance. Oh, quite possibly. Who am I to say? Not a medical doctor, right?
Yeah.
There's also another number, though. I'm trying to remember the name of the Nielsen norm, right? The Nielsen number, right? Which is 500 milliseconds. So it's the latency on a computer that you can accept. And if you have more than 500 milliseconds of time between 400 milliseconds, okay. If it's like less than half a second, 400 is better. 300 is better. If you can instantaneously get a response to something, then it'll keep you engaged, and usually you become addicted to your screen, right? But I think that works out in the real world as well. If you have a lot of distance between people and it's hard, then you're going to want to stay with people that you can have instantaneous communication with, rather than having to walk across to one group or to another group, or to even call somebody. I mean, let alone writing a letter to people on the other side of the world. So there's something about the Nielsen number for humans on the internet that there's a generation, at least, that we had where you could instantaneously, it's happening here still, we're trying to like maintain this idea that you can instantaneously communicate with people all over the world, people in Germany, Austria, people in Canada, people in New York, people in Montenegro. We're instantaneously able to communicate, which breaks everything. I don't even want to believe what Mundar is saying. I got to check it to make sure it's true. Is it true, Mundar? Is it already confirmed?
I'm not seeing it.
Oh, bro, I better not be.
I'm not seeing it, but it doesn't look good, man. I'm just saying that it doesn't look good.
Yeah,
They couldn't save Kennedy with the wound. I mean, he did have his whole head shot out, but he
allegedly
lost blood before they probably even got him in the ambulance.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. I saw it just like shooting out, man. It was just insane.
Yeah.
Is he dead? Still a question. It's still a question. I'm going to keep hoping, because, we live in a weirdly modern time where modern medicine exists, and he could just become like super radicalized instead. And I'll take that.
Andreas,
over.
if you ever run for any kind of office, you should let me be your head of security.
I'm with the sword. You have to carry a sword all the time. Dog.
All right,
That's gonna
sure.
be-
Oh,
Boss said I have to carry this fucking thing around, so I guess I gotta carry the sword around. Like,
that seems like a
you would
good
become
move.
such
Yeah.
a meme, dude. You'd be the guy with the katana,
oh no.
smoking cigarettes, and they'd be like, "That's Chris. He's the bodyguard for Xirtus." Yep, fucked up.
Bro, yeah, that's,
You never
I mean,
know,
for
you
sure.
know?
No, I'm saying it's a fact, man. It would happen.
Yeah, it's gonna happen at this point. I think that's where we're going. I don't know.
Trained to take a
I
bullet
always
for
liked
Xirtus.
that thing with Jesus, because people always talk about worshiping Jesus, but a big thing was Jesus said live like him. And so when you're a kid and you read that, you're like, well, and I think they do this on purpose. They train you to miss the big part about what he did with his life. They cut out that whole thing from 13 to 30. But they show that part where he gets murdered. Like they show the part where he's a smartass in court, and then they showed the part where he gets murdered for it, and he gets like really whooped. They whoop Jesus hard. I don't know if you remember, but it's pretty bad. And then they kill him. And so you see it as a kid, you're like, okay, if you're gonna be like Jesus, then you're gonna have to die. Like if you're gonna be like Jesus, you're gonna have to pick something up and fight for it, and then people will hate you for it, and then you'll die. You'll die for the thing you believe in. Yo, what's up, Stellium? You made it. What's up, bro? This is our friend Stellium, the hacker prince.
Hey
guys.
Is your internet? We got, so I'll just as like a reasonable segue for a second. I'm trying to find a cover of your book or something so I can show that. Here it is. Our buddy here, just so you a little background, Mike was the guy that they based that movie War Games on. So they've got this kid who was a hacker, and then the government finds out that he's been using their phone numbers to get into their systems. This is basically what happened with Mike. Mike was earlier in the movie, went off to, I think you were in Washington. I got to read the whole book now because you can get the whole book now. This is his memoirs of a
Seattle.
digital rebellion in the 80s. He was in Seattle. Yeah. And so you found your way into like the dumpster with all the numbers from Microsoft for the DoD. Is that basically the deal?
I definitely did some dumpster diving. There's no doubt about that. But
Some pretty good
there were lots of ways to get in. It was a lot easier back then than it is now.
The humility of a hacker. Well, yeah, you did get clutched up, I guess. This is what the book's going to be about. You guys are going to have to get a copy and read this, and he's going to do an audiobook for it too. But basically the government found out who was using those phone lines and connecting to their DoD and going through their systems, and so
Like
they
freaking?
picked up. He was a freak, bro. You're a super freak, but you also
I was
had a
a
modem,
freak.
so you could.
And a hacker. I had a blue box, red box, multiple colored boxes.
I feel like nowadays, as the technology and security systems become more advanced, I think like people are becoming the weakest vector in any security system, because like as we become more reliant on like electronic systems to secure shit, we get lazy, we get stupid, and I think like that's when we become the targets to break into something.
Yeah, the people are always the weakest link in any security system. It's
Yeah, I
talked
think it's
about in my
always
book.
been.
It's a famous quote by Kevin Mitnick as well.
Social
Yeah.
engineering is the easiest form of engineering for sure. You just ask them for like the piece of paper, they don't understand what it means, and they'll give you that information. But you want to explain real quick, maybe like what happened? So they picked you up and they arrested you, and then what did they do? What did they make you do? What happened?
Yeah, well, I was. Let's see where to start. I'd been hacking for probably 4 years at that point, from basically like 13 to 18 years old, and was flying around the country and hanging out with other hackers who I'd met, not online because the internet didn't exist as we know it yet. It was bulletin boards. So I was going in search of like the best information about hacking, and then kind of fell in with some crazy characters, and they filled the pages of the book, and turned out to be some of the most famous hackers of the 80s. And yeah, so I was the first of them to get busted. Lucky me. And it was the law that I was tried under was the most progressive law in the U.S. for hacking at the time. So it was making it well. They basically define computer crime as a law, because up until that point, people were just going to jail for things like fraud and other stuff because they hadn't really figured out, you know, what to call it yet and what it looked like. So yeah, I was the test case. I was the lab rat, and I ended up going to jail for it. And so it's kind of a unique story because there were other hackers who went to jail before me, but not for hacking. So I'm actually the first hacker in the world to go to jail for the crime of hacking. It's
Oh my God.
it's a
How old were
dubious
you,
honor.
bro?
I had just turned 18, so I was tried as an adult. So,
Ooh, the worst.
yeah, they gave me
And so,
2 weeks in jail, two years probation, 200 hours community service, and $2,000 fine. The judge, I think, had just finished watching Better Off Dead that came out earlier that year, and so he was obsessed with twos, and he probably wanted his $2 as well.
Hey man, 30% of our personality is the last movie we saw, honestly.
There you go. That's funny. Never heard that. But
dang, because I just
makes
watched
sense.
Miracle Mile where they have like a nuclear holocaust. I don't know if I want that in my personality.
You got to cleanse the palate.
I have a
but
fun
like-
little like 3-minute video if you want to play it.
Yeah,
because
pull it up.
One of the
Pull it
before I'll send you the link. But one of the things that happened is like 35 years later, I reached out to the prosecuting attorney to just fact check some of the things that were in my book, because I was like, you know, was I really the first? It seemed pretty crazy, but he basically confirmed that for me. And hold on, here's the link. But the fun thing was, part of my plea bargaining, I agreed to do a
Send it in the private chat.
yeah, let's see, private chat. There it is. I agreed to do an interview with law enforcement, and so they brought in the heads of security from the different companies that I'd infiltrated, and they, yeah, you're gonna want sound for that. But let me just say a little bit first before we play it. So yeah, the Secret Service was there, and either the CIA or the FBI. There are like a dozen people in the room with a video camera on me, and they just kind of grilled me for a couple of hours. And at one point, they started asking me questions about some of the friends that I had, and I was like, you know, if you're asking me to like snitch on my buddies, it's not going to happen. So, you know, I said I'm here to tell you what I did, and if, you know, so they kind of raised an eyebrow, and then we continued on. But when I communicated with the prosecuting attorney, he was like, you know, remember that interview you did? And I said, yeah. And he said, I think I might still have it. So he went digging in his basement, and it was on beta. It wasn't even on VHS. That's how long ago this was. And he managed to get about 12-15 minutes of it and digitize it. And so this little promo video that I made for a failed Kickstarter campaign like 3-4 years ago, that's what this is. Back it up a little bit and turn on the sound. You can play that.
In February 1985, an 18-year-old Kirkland, Washington man pled guilty to 4 counts of computer trespass. The defendant was accused of gaining illegal access to 4 large Seattle area firms. Would you state your name, please?
My name is Mike Wilkerson. Usually they have the way it's set up is you dial in on one line and it calls you back on another, so that you can't. It's supposed to be the ultimate security. But what you do is you break into Cosmos and you find out all of the phone numbers that company owns, and you call it until you find the two that are hooked up to data. And then you get the callback modem, and you set up call forwarding on that line, so it call forwards to your home number. That takes a lot of work, but you haven't been caught. You have this invulnerable feeling. You just don't think you're going to get caught. You ask any hacker out there that hasn't been caught yet if he thinks he's going to get caught, and he'll tell you no. And if they tell you yes, it's because somebody close to them just recently got busted, and they have a feeling they're being watched.
Whether you're curious about the 80s hacking scene and some of its most infamous characters, or if you care to indulge in a bit of nostalgia for the early days of computing, or if you just simply like to kick back with a light-hearted coming-of-age tale, then this book is for you. Ta-da! You made it out, Andreas.
Sorry, I was saying pretty crazy, right? Like it's pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah, that was wild because I didn't know that footage still existed, and 35 years later, he sends me a link and I download it, and it was something else. See, it's like the only video of me at that age or younger that exists. You know, videotape and video recorders wasn't very common when I was a kid. So. Yeah.
Dude, that's insane. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I've had a lot of people have read it, several published authors, and they say it reads like a movie. So
it's got to be.
I wanted a page turner, and I made one. So,
dude, yeah, I got the first chapter, and then he just sent me it. So I'm gonna be reading it through. We're gonna do an interview soon, like going over everything from the book. But that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, there's a lot in there. Like one of the things that happened for my community service, a man reached out to the judge who had seen me on television, and he was the founder of the National Coalition for Children's Justice. He was on to the whole human, the child trafficking stuff, basically before anybody else. He wrote a book called Child Lures: Crying in the Playtime of Others. And his dream was to set up some sort of a national network for tracking missing children. And he was I had a first conversation I had with him. I was 19 years old at the time, and he was already talking about things like SRI and human trafficking, and basically, the satanic elite, and that how it was reaching up to the highest, levels of government, and that it was very organized. They were using bulletin boards to move children about. And if you cross state lines with any of the children, there was no follow-up. There was no interstate cooperation. So his idea was to set up a network, and we started the process, myself and a couple of other hackers. So called that program Hackers from Heaven. So it's all in the book. Interesting times. And then, as we've seen over especially the last decade, so much of that stuff has just been proven to be not conspiracy theory, but fact. And so he was well ahead of the game. He passed away a few years ago, but I managed to talk with him before he died. It was a fun conversation. Kenneth Wooden, rest in peace.
Oh man, yeah, this world's full of a lot of problems. The whole point of this, funny because I made this title like "We Have Solutions." So Do you want to like? What do you think? Do we have any? Is that just like wishful thinking on my part? Like, do we have solutions? Do you think we have solutions to this stuff? Is Roblox going to win, or are the kids going to be
I
safe?
think things are getting better. It doesn't seem like it, but I'm a, what do you call it, an apocalyptimist. I think it's probably going to get a lot worse before it gets better. But not the first hacker. First hacker jailed for hacking. No, but I coined the term prospiracy a few years ago because everyone's always going, down the conspiracy rabbit holes, and they can lead to some pretty dark places, and it can be pretty depressing sometimes when you start to become aware of all the stuff that's going on and has been for a very long time. And as you really, I've been at the whole, pulling back the curtain thing since I was in my early 20s, when my father gave me a book called Behold the Pale the Horse, which written by William Cooper, that just kind of laid out the whole secret societies, the power structure, MK Ultra, all kinds of, there were so many topics in that book. So I've been looking at the world through different lenses for over 30 years now. And like I said, it can get, it can take you to pretty dark places. And a lot of people get stuck there, and they want to like run and hide in the hills. And for me, I found that there are actually a lot of rabbit holes. When you go down them, they leave you feeling empowered. They leave you feeling less afraid. And take viruses and virology, for example. If you dig into that one, you stop worrying about things like gain of function and whatever the next superbug is going to be, because you realize that they've never actually isolated any virus in the history of virology. And that's definitely something to look into. So I call that prospiracy, because you no longer worry about somebody coughing next to you. You realize contagion, as we were taught, is not a real thing. And there's a whole bunch of them like that: nuclear power, nuclear bombs, asteroid strikes from, that supposedly wiped out the dinosaurs, that kind of stuff. So after a while, you just start laughing when the propaganda comes down the pipeline. So prospiracy, that's my contribution to solutions, is there is light at the end of the tunnel, but sometimes you have to go through and, to get to the other side. And so it's not all doom and gloom, and it's not all fearful. That's my take on that question.
I agree. It's going to get worse before it gets better, but I agree. I also think it's going to get better. Kind of, it has to, right? There's someone said this, that if the good guys win in the end, was it? It's something like that, right? Or like the ending is good. If it's not good yet, it's not the end yet. Something like that. That there's still more, because there has to be some sort of a rise up. I don't know. You heard what was going on earlier, right? Telling him about Charlie Kirk.
I just heard about that, the shooting, and also the subway, and the what happened to the Ukrainian girl. It's just horrific, and of course, it's just more division sowed. So
yeah, totally. And more power to Palantir, and more power to police state. It's funny, because during a time when the Democrats were in office, the MAGA and like the right wing were always saying like, oh, we have to be very careful about the power the government has. We need to weaken the power of government. And now that the MAGA's in power, they're like, we need public executions. We need, to arrest citizens. We need to
just surveil every aspect of everything.
Right. Yeah. I mean, how do you feel about, universal surveillance? I mean, isn't it already kind of here? I remember watching that movie Enemy of the State with Will Smith, and they replaced his watch and they replaced his phone. And now it's like they already did that to that movie was about how they were replacing all of our watches and all of our phones, and that it was never going back, that those devices will be the points of impact where we have tracking devices on everyone all the time. And like how much is still private? Like, do you think private, like, because this was a major thought that privacy would stop existing sometime in the 21st century. Does it exist at all anymore? Is there any privacy?
I don't think there's any privacy on our black mirrors. It's pretty obvious that they're tracking every click, and they have been for a long time. So I've operated for decades under the assumption that anything I do online is tracked, and so for me it's just kind of like hiding in plain sight. And yeah, I'm sure there's all kinds of different watch lists that many of us are on, but you know, truth is a hated thing when you're dealing with lying people who are controlling governments. And I'm of the mind that the government that governs least governs best. And you know, the more they do, the more they show their hand. But the question is, can we do anything about it? So I think we're heading to a bifurcation, right? It's like you're either going to be a Luddite or you're going to have to like do all of the facial recognition and all the, you know, everything that they want you to do to I just traveled to Australia and to Serbia, and it was like, it's nuts, all the different control mechanisms that are in place. But you no longer have to take off your shoes.
Yeah.
From the little bit I know, wasn't there an option even after 9/11? I forgot the exact name of the officials, but they basically offered, we want to introduce a system, I believe they called it Threadneedle or something like this, which would use advanced profiling and pattern recognition to find actual potentially violent individuals and that could really cause trouble. But rather than that, they chose dragnet surveillance and basically said, oh, we want to go further with that. And it just seems whatever's happening now is just, I almost want to say, steps towards legalization of all of that, or final legalization, to make this applicable to everyone, even officially and legally.
They always want to surveil their own populace in the name of safety, which is kind of the opposite of that, because then they have all kinds of dirt. So if they're corrupt, then they can use it for blackmail purposes and, you know, hold it against you. So
there's just so much less humanity. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the whole thing with Snowden and Vault 7 and all that kind of stuff. I mean, they've been telling us in plain sight, and whether that was a limited hangout or not, you know, I don't know. But I think, I mean, Patriot Acts 1 and 2, those were pretty glaring examples of government overreach, and it's only gotten worse since then. So, yeah.
I mean, I know it's like we're saying September 11th is coming tomorrow, and it just seems also like there was a thing I noticed where if something goes wrong with the psychological operation, then you have a new one right away because it can disrupt the news cycle. Like today, there's you know, you've had the arena thing for a week. Now you've got the thing with Charlie. There's now the school shooting that just happened in Denver today as well. There's just 2 kids that were shot at least. And then there's the helicopter crash. It seems like they're crowding up the news cycles and the way news cycles work with 24-hour a day, 7 days a week. It used to be kind of weird with CNN, but now with Twitter, with X, it's just constantly that you have just nonstop worldwide postage feed, you know, engagement. You have engagement in the PSYOP on every level. It's participatory because you want to say something about it. You want to get a post seen, and you know,
PSYOP of the hour.
PSYOP of the hour, yeah. It's pretty close. It's pretty close to that at this point. I don't know. And it's weird because, again, people are going to be like the FBI going to Utah. I mean, it's Utah, which is just crazy too. It's Utah. But that this is going to lead to more and more, like you said, surveillance. But also, I was saying it earlier this week that we went from building up the Palantir system and ICE in order to go after, like, well, we're just going after homicidal people. And then they go after anyone who's a border violator. So now it's already a little closer. And then it's anybody who is fighting against that, and anybody who's a psychopath, like anybody who. So you've got all these people. It's showing the government that governs the least. Where are the places where the government's been governing the least? Well, blue cities,
the
right?
borders,
anywhere, the borders and blue cities, because blue cities are places where you have absolute crime without police protection. So those are the places where you're seeing. I mean, if there's gun control, so no one can protect themselves, and the police aren't really parading around doing any protection, then you don't arrest people. If you arrest people, you release them right away. Then eventually you have the perfect storm to get people to demand for more government. Like you turn it down a little bit, and then all of a sudden people say, I need more of it. And well, you asked for it. And so very quickly
Right.
you get people to install it. It's just kind of this action reaction provocation mentality
Like oscillation.
Yeah, and then you
to
have
get
all of
to get
these
it higher.
you have all these war-torn countries, and then they've, you know, they weaponize empathy, and the governments are corrupt, and so that it's basically immigration warfare where they destabilize countries by bringing in huge amounts of refugees, and you know, but those refugees are often not vetted. You know, maybe they've emptied their prisons because the infrastructure is destroyed, and so those people are just crossing over borders. You know, I lived in Sweden for 10 years, and I moved there in 2001 and moved to Spain in 2012. And I watched huge changes happen there the last 20 years. It's just crazy how the crime rate and bombings, which never happened at all, are now a very, you know, regular thing. And I think it's the you know, capital of I don't want to say the word because it probably gets triggered by algorithms, but you know, forcing people to do things against their will. It's really sad to see how it's all progressed, and how divided even a place like Sweden is right now. It's effective, it works, and most people don't know it's happening. You know, they're just like I said, the weaponization of empathy.
Well, it's also because everyone's so compromised emotionally. Like, you know, it's considered normal or something to strive to have a family, to have like a wife and kids. And then you wake up the next day and suddenly you're like living every single day terrified. It's like, oh, what's going to happen to my kids? Or it's like, what are they going to be taught? What's going to happen to my wife just getting groceries? And I don't know. It's kind of like we're set up to fail. You know, we're set up to be compromised emotionally and mentally and psychologically.
I see that a lot. I feel like that's the big play here is, you know, most of the people that are going to do the biggest damage are going to be suffering from empathy and genuine sympathy and grief. You know, the more grief you have, the more upset you are about Trump, the more likely you are to do something crazy that hurts people. That's been a thing, right? And the more upset you are that someone did something that hurt some friend of ours, right? Or someone we know, or you just someone you like, a social media person, or someone just generally just like on your side, the more you're going to want to make some sort of a change. And the drastic change is always either you do something yourself. I think the other day people were talking about how they thought, like Quarter Black Garrett was talking about vigilantism. It's like pretty soon vigilantism is going to be a thing. I don't think so. I don't think vigilantism is going to be as big as you think it is. There already is a lot of the whole idea of people trying to shoot innocent people. They think of themselves as vigilantes. So you already have that, but that's the provocation for the bigger authoritarianism. So the people that say, I can't do this on my own, you know, there are so many more of them. So there's going to be far more people asking for the state to step in and protect them. That's where I see this going for sure.
Well, I mean, what else can we do except trust God? I mean, there's like nothing else. Like if the very authorities are trying to exploit you and manipulate you, then you're just gonna have to go to the only thing left that's above their heads. I'm not saying like I'm not trying to be all like evangelical here, but I'm like thinking about it logically. Like where would the average person such as myself be pushed to when you just start like removing bedrock after bedrock of reality through the news cycle constantly? I mean, there's the unsavory ends like radicalism, extremism, vigilantism, like you were saying.
How do you train people to look at information and to seek truth in lies? Like how do they first to see that there are lies and that disinformation is everywhere and that every kind of information is weaponized to make you react to it? And how do you help people not react to it and then make their own actions based on their own deciphering of the information that, you know, truth is like lies are built around pieces of information. Some of that's truth, right?
I mean, I have my impulses, which at this point is just to try to be as grateful as possible. Like I got to keep it simple. I can't lean on like overly complex frameworks of psychology to try to like cope with things. I just have to just stop and be like, oh, at least I'm not dead. You know, like at least at least I got to live, or something, just something, anything to be thankful for at that given moment when I hear like terrible news. And then I could deal with it. Then I could deal with the fallout of like what's actually happening. But I got to like just reset first.
I think a big thing about this is a lack of self-direction and leadership. So young men are especially motivated. I think violence comes out of a lack of self-control. Like if you feel like you have no control over your destiny, if you can't communicate in a way that can get you a certain level of self-determination, you turn to violence. Men turn to violence. People turn to violence, right? And also if you feel like you can't be a good leader or you can't lead your own life, that you turn to try to find somebody like a meme lord or a president or a dictator. You know, you want somebody who seems like they can make that they're a safe leader. Like, and this is a very
like Joe Rogan, Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, you have these people that parade as alphas. These people that are not really alphas, but they parade as alphas because they're willing to. You know, earlier we're talking about people that dress like skaters because they want to be skaters and they suck at skateboarding. Like this is, I think, what the alpha podcaster thing is. You have these like weak men. They're often homosexual. Nothing wrong with that. But you know, if there's an obsession with the male aesthetic, there's a question about Andrew Tate. I'm just saying, there's something about this idea where if you love masculine aesthetic so much that you're trying to be like a muscular alpha, it calls in your, you know what I mean? It doesn't seem like you. How many dads do you know that are like that? Like you have a daughter and like they live their life and usually it's not them. Usually it's not the people that are actually comfortable with their masculinity or with their life. It's these like psychopaths who can't experience love, that want to oppress to show that they have some power. I was thinking about this earlier because Owen Benjamin's doing this debate with Andrew Wilson. Andrew Wilson said some crazy things, you know, not just about Orthodox Christianity. Like he talks about, you know, women loving, like some women like sexual assault, that it'd be good for them or something like that. He said some crazy stuff. Talked about how he basically forces his wife into what I would consider like rape scenarios because he forces them. And it seems like it's all because
bad juju.
He feels like he's totally, the dude's a psychopath. I mean, I hate to.
Misogyny is kind of a red flag.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm a victim of that too. Like, there's certain moments where I think like women think differently than men, and femininity can have violence to it as well. I think maybe that's me trying to equalize my perspective on it. Like, you can't always think that women are Sophia, like the goddess of wisdom. Sometimes they're Eris, sowers of discord. But this is true about men too. But women have a special power over men, I think, especially men that have no power over themselves. And so that's a big push that men will try to be in control if they lack toxic femininity. Yeah, there's definitely toxic femininity, but I think it's created. I think I did this video a couple days ago talking about like the different schools and waves of feminism. And I think that there's a lot of reasons why feminism's evolved the way it has. And a big part of it is the hijacking of the media. Same thing with the Pride movement, right? Like if you go back and you look at women's suffrage originally, even the idea of just owning property and being able to be independent and maybe being treated somewhat equally to a man, except for in circumstances where you're like lifting rocks or something like that. You know, there's a certain level where women were trying to find their equality, but then also I think in the 80s and 90s, particularly 90s and early 2000s, women's uniqueness, because there's something that's specific about women. It's not that they have to be equal with men or not the same as men. They don't have to be the same as men. That's a Soviet idea. That's a very Marxist idea, that we're all workers. We're all units of labor. And so everyone's the same, regardless of any quality that you might have inherited that's different. The state can equalize you and offer you the opportunity to be just as effective a unit of labor as anyone else. But that's not always the case. There's different positions that are important, whether you're a janitor or a doctor. These are maybe essential. Like you can't have a good surgery without a clean surgery center. You probably need both jobs. And the same thing, like you can't have a baby without a woman. And so TERFs exist because of that. I don't think all femininity is toxic the same way. I don't think that the gay pride movement in the 70s, when they were dealing with HIV into the 80s and, you know, lack of equality and that they had to hide who they were in order to even just be taxpayers. I think that that's all the same thing. At a certain point, it gets hijacked. And then you've got corporations that are figuring out how they can weaponize your identity politics.
Yeah, that's all
that they can
Bernays.
make money.
Bernays is the godfather of that shit.
Yeah. Do you want to? You can elaborate a bit on how you think they're doing that with
Well, the specific example I'm referencing is I think it was when he launched that campaign with Lucky Strike cigarettes. And because that was a time when it was like socially looked down upon for women to smoke publicly. You know, they was always considered like a manly habit or like a more masculine activity. So then Lucky Strike launches this campaign where they basically tied the act of smoking in public as a woman to feminine empowerment, or, you know, like feminism essentially. And suddenly like you had like the sales of cigarettes just doubled like almost overnight, because you convince the other half of the population to have a good reason to start buying it other than just smoking cigarettes. Now you smoke cigarettes for women's rights. And it was a genius ploy. And that's when I think advertising suddenly became this insidious, deep appeal to your like insecurities. You know, that taught corporations how to sell you stuff based on what you feel you're lacking. Like
if you support transgenderism, buy a Bud Light, you know?
Hell yeah. Yeah, exactly. If you want to feel cool, if you want to feel attractive, if you want to feel like, you know, your life is meaningful, if you want to feel authentic, you know?
Yeah, I feel like it's toxic corporatism. I really think so. I think it's toxic marketing, propaganda itself is a way to weaponize people's identity. And so if you say, you know, we sell you a product that makes you more yourself, like you were just like everyone else, the same color as everyone else. Now you have a neon colored shirt and it's your favorite color because we picked it out. We made it for you. We made you more yourself. Like if you want to be a skateboarder, you need this outfit. I think that's a big consumerism. Maybe. I don't know if I blame consumerism. Consumerism is a problem, but that's not, I think, the issue here, because you can consume products you make. You can consume products your friends make. You can consume what you choose to consume. But if you don't have access to a free market and you can't consume what you want to consume, then it's or if you're easily trained to consume what you're told you want to consume. There's so many people that are eating things that are not good for them because they think they want it, right? I don't think it's consumerism. I think it's bigger. It's bigger because people are being programmed to believe that in order to be themselves, they need help. You know,
scarcity mindset.
You think so?
Versus scarcity versus abundance. I mean, like honestly, a person who feels content with themselves every single day probably makes a really shitty consumer. What can I sell them? They're already content. It's like, can I offer you this overpriced coat? It's like, nah, man, my old coat is just fine, and et cetera, et cetera.
Scarcity. I like it. Some of that. You want to say something, Raph?
No, there's too much to say about that. I don't have a clear thought on it, but yeah, abundance versus scarcity always is a thing, and I always wondered how to properly pronounce it. Is it scarcity or scarcity? Being scared in the city, all isolated, even though there's so many people around. Yeah, one can only hope for the best. I wonder what Jordan has to say. He's been quiet for a while. If he wants to say something.
Oh no, I'm listening, man. Sorry, I'm just a little off today. Keep going, man.
No, I know we're both. I see what you're doing. I'm doing the same thing. I'm digging, and as far as I can tell, like there's a lot of sources starting to appear that suggest that Charlie's dead. You know, it's.
Yeah, Tim Pool, like a half hour ago, said he was stable, but I don't know about that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping that he's alive. I'm praying that he's alive. I mean, it's just, there's no reason that he has to be dead. We live in a world with amazing technology. There's all sorts of ways that you can save someone's life. There are people around there. Like if you're on a campus surrounded by people that are training to be paramedics and medical. Do you know how many Mormons live in Utah? Do you know what Mormons Melchizedek priesthood can do? Like, I command you not to die. I would hope to God that some freaking Latter-day Saints are using the Order of Melchizedek powers. Like it's some Mormon voodoo on this guy. I really do hope so. But yeah, I don't want to announce that he is if it's not true. I don't want it to be true. So I'm kind of waiting on it too. But yeah, I mean, sounds like I've got some other people saying he's in critical condition, but that he might be, you know, still in surgery and that they're trying to pump him full of blood. Again,
yeah, I mean, if he, sorry, go ahead.
No, sure, you first.
No, I mean, if he has passed I mean, depending on the situation, they may not disclose it right away, right? The people who know.
Yeah.
So
Until they're ready to use it for something. That's the thing. But you know how many people I've seen go to be in a car crash? I mean, my mom was a doctor in Santa Cruz, and I've seen so many people rushed in, given like so much blood. I've seen a lot of things happen. There's a weird amount of hope in science. I know it's not Christian science, but there's a lot of hope in it. Prayers he's alive and makes it through. Amen. Yeah, that's what we're, tell your parents to pray. I don't know what else to say, bro. Like that's, it's just wild. Yeah. And then, of course, it's so easy to radicalize it. I just keep thinking like everyone's desperate for this idea of a civil war, but we've been saying there is no country anymore. There's like a world now. So a civil war is a worldwide civil war. It's like a war between two American created ideologies that are running the show, and they're fighting against each other for total dominance at this point. I mean, I see that every day. I see that more and more.
What do you think about changing the subject again?
Well, I was just thinking now would be a perfect time for like a false flag alien invasion. I mean, if it was ever gonna come, like
they've been saying it actually, like all summer. They've been suggesting. I think Avi Loeb talked about this, right? That like September to November, there's supposed to be some sort of a blue beam thing. I've been thinking a lot about that as well. That if you have everyone turned against each other, the easiest way to get everyone turned outwards is something outside, right? So you have an alien event or a nuclear event, or you have something that everyone, if it's somewhere else from everyone else, then you can say it's attacking all of us at once. So it's so unifying in a way. And you can take everyone if you wanted them to be, but it seems like they're pushing everyone to be against each other. So I don't see if they really want to unite people, there are easy ways to do it. There's a lot of ways you can get people together. I don't know if that's exactly like maybe this is part of that oscillation you talked about, that they're oscillating from people turning against each other and turning back to each other.
Yeah, can't be static, really. I mean, maybe that's the problem. Maybe it's like you just can't. Humanity just doesn't work that way, where we're like statically at peace or constantly at war, consistently at least. Like, nah, we just have to move in this like constant oscillating wave. It's really just about controlling it. You can't really stop it, so you could just manage it.
And then I hate that we're hyping it because it's fear. It's fear-based propaganda, and that's not our job. That's not what we do. But fear is really interesting because it limits and changes your agency, like your freedom of agency, your freedom to make choices. We were talking about September 11th earlier, because I was just trying to remember. Everyone remembers where they were on September 11th, but how many people remember September 10th? How many people remember what they were doing the night before September 11th? I vaguely do, because it was an interesting week for me. I came home from Europe. I just flew home, and I think I got back on the 9th or something. And then the 10th we hung out. I think we had enchiladas at the house, and I can vaguely remember also. They were good. I also I think I saw Donnie Darko. It might have been the 9th I saw it, or the 10th I saw Donnie Darko, and I thought that was such a crazy cool movie. I mean, owning DeWibs, you remember what you were doing September 10th? Tell us in the chat. Do you guys remember? Like, because it's easy to remember trauma, but do you guys remember what you were doing September 10th? Like, because it was such a different world, man. The world was so different.
I was in elementary school, so every day was the fucking same when I was at that age.
That's what I was thinking, dude. Yeah.
I was on the school bus, the little bus, because I had special needs or anything, because it was just a small school, okay.
Uh-huh.
But one of the kids comes on and he goes like, "Yo, someone just flew a plane in the World Trade Center," and I was like, "No, they didn't." And then later on in school, the teachers in fact confirmed. It's like, yeah, it happened. And as little kids, we were like, "Oh shoot, that's scary."
My daughter,
you remember, Mike?
my daughter was born that week, so that was an intense week.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, and
Wow.
And I had read a book by David Icke about 6 months before called "The Biggest Secret Ever." It's like 550-page big book, incredibly well referenced. Really spells out a lot of things clearly. And so I was hip to 9/11 from day one, and then my suspicions were confirmed later, with the various documentaries that came out after that. So yeah, world, it was a different place from one day to the next.
Totally. There was so much more freedom. We could fly anywhere. It was so easy to fly everywhere. People didn't care. Everyone was chill. It totally felt like a calm before a storm because there was just no wind in the air. Everything was just, you could do whatever. The world was just going. It's like the propaganda machines were taking a night off. I don't know. I remember like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was on TV. People were happy.
America's Funniest Home Videos.
Jay says September 10th party at the local museum, huh? That's kind of interesting. Brian was carrying mail. Dude. On the positive note, Twitch stream's going well. If you're watching this, I hope you're watching on Twitch also because we're getting those affiliate links. If you get people to watch it, like 4 people regular watch
Ching, ching.
in a month, that'll be good. Well, at very least you get promoted.
And also,
you see
if you have Amazon Prime, apparently you get a free Twitch sub every month. So if you were so inclined, you can use that for Xirtus, so you can finally get up there.
And we interrupt this traumatic moment for a grift. I'm sorry, but yeah. What do you say, Mike?
No, I was just going through the chat, and back when you guys were talking about war games, somebody was like, he must have been 4 years old at the time. I was 16 when war games came out.
Oh my god. Yeah, people forget the world's not that long ago.
It was 1983.
That was a good movie. Have you seen War Games? I'm gonna make Raph watch it.
I want to check that movie out now since you told me about
It's
it.
still
Matthew
good.
Broderick, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Matthew Broderick. It's great. It is
And
it is really good.
Ali Sheedy.
It's about essentially the complexities of having an automated system. It's called the Whopper, their computer.
Yep.
Like a Big Mac or a Whopper. And it's
The world something.
I
Forgot what Whopper stands for.
War, probably something. WOPR, War Operations Plan Response, of course.
Yeah.
Whopper. Yeah. So
I know you know Andreas, but I'll tell people also. The foreword to my book has been written by Gary McKinnon, which I'm very
that's right.
excited about. And
You guys, if you're familiar with hackers, Gary McKinnon, felony charges for systems administration hacking back in when was that, like 2001 or something, right? It was like almost, I think, around the same time.
Yeah, it was. I'm not sure if it was shortly before or shortly after 9/11, but yeah, he was the face of hacking for a decade, at least. And
He discovered,
what did he say? Go ahead,
his
sorry.
whole motivation for doing what he did was he was convinced that the government was hiding information about free energy and aliens, and so he was on kind of a truther quest and got into 90 different systems between NASA and the Pentagon. And yeah, they were trying to extradite him for a decade, unsuccessfully. In the end, David Gilmour wrote a song about his whole case, and there was a whole Save Gary movement because there were politicians or military guys that were calling for his extradition and even talking about the death penalty because he was such an evil
treasonous
person.
man.
Yeah, and it's just so ridiculous what the way they painted him. Gotten to know him a bit. We've had some nice conversations, and seems like a really nice chap. And unfortunately, he's even though Theresa May ratified the extradition treaty with the U.S., basically, it was like the U.S. just said, "Give us whoever we want, and we'll say thank you." That was kind of the treaty up until they changed it, and that was all happening around his case. But unfortunately, all of the countries that he might fly to still have extradition treaties. So he's not been able to leave the UK for 25 years now. It's terrible.
Did you talk to him about what he thinks because he got into like a lot of important systems, right? Like the Navy, NASA, Army, Air Force, DoD, Department of Defense, now War, DARPA. Did he find anything? Does he think he found anything interesting about free energy aliens?
He was on one system that I remember him talking about where there were these massive image files for the day that took him a very long time to download. And basically, I think it was kind of like, the cigar craft that are always tossed about in the UFO circles. And I can't remember, there might have been one or two other things, but he didn't really find anything that conclusive.
I think he did find a crew roster of like some space fleet or something. That was like,
yeah,
that's when I heard that story. That was the part that blew me away. I was like, what?
Yeah.
And I looked at the names, and
I agree.
And their names were like Donald R. Ronald, like just American ass names. And I was like, oh, okay, that's weird.
I have the book written by his mom. I think it's called Saving Gary, and yeah, it's a shame. He's a really nice guy, but he's just I don't know. I wouldn't want to be in the UK 25 years without the ability to leave. I'm going there next. I'm going there next week for a conference. 4 days will be enough.
Yeah, man. Holy.
It's a beautiful country, but
yeah, it's just rocky there right now.
In the cities.
I just got back from Australia and Serbia. I was speaking at conferences in both places, and Australia is an amazing country. I was blown away by how beautiful it was and how clean, and everything just seems to function the way it should. It's like, oh, this is how it can be.
You were talking about the architecture looks pretty Tartarian, right? Like there's a lot of old world stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of old world stuff. And then what's really interesting is because I took a bus ride from New South Wales, Byron Bay, up to Brisbane, and on the way passed through Surfers Paradise. So I just got to see things, as they were going by on the bus. And the cities were just pristine, and they had all of this new architecture, but it's like everywhere that they're throwing up buildings, it seems like it's just like blocks. These were all really, they're modern, but they were really interesting and shaped. It was like, oh, how nice to see them actually building in a creative fashion. I was pleased with that. My daughter, I was traveling with her, and she was really taken by it and wants to move back now.
That's pretty legit. Yeah, I mean, I'm reading a little bit now from the Gary McKinnon files. So apparently it was like September 12th or September 11th even that he got indicted for shutting down the Royal Navy Observatory, 2001. So that's interesting timing for sure.
I don't know if that actually happened. I think he's got a different story about that. He wasn't malicious. He wasn't taking shit down. He was just looking around.
Yeah, I think they shut it down probably because they saw someone was in the system. That's kind of what I imagined, and then they just want to blame him for whatever.
Well, they had a vested interest in demonizing him as much as possible because he made them look like fucking idiots. Like he got into all these systems by just writing a Perl script and
logged into root.
Yeah, he pinged all the different machines that were on the network. And put in like password for password and blank for password and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and he ended up getting into 90 systems, and they're like, he's this evil mastermind that we have to stop him, before he takes over the world. And it was just like anything.
Dude using a 56K modem. Yeah, like I don't know. But I mean, that list seems interesting. So alien photos and non-terrestrial officers, he couldn't download the photos fast enough on a 56K. So he only got some low scale gray cigar shaped crafts, but that he saw, a list of a number of important Navy officers who were non-human. And I mean, yeah.
Wait, they said non-human? I think he said non-terrestrial, as in like they're stationed off planet, which is fucking wild. Like to think it's like, oh yeah, these ordinary Navy specially trained dudes are in a secret mission in space, just stationed in these ships doing God knows what.
Well, they don't tell you what's in the submarines, right?
I have to also point out that extraterrestrial can also mean extraterrestrial.
True. Yeah.
Outer
Hmm.
lands. It doesn't have to mean outer
Ultra-terrestrial.
space. It could be inner terrestrial. It could be underwater.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's a big part of this. That's why the Navy is doing it, because you don't expect it. But if they have a nuclear submarine that's disappeared somewhere, somehow, I mean, they don't tell you what's in these big parts of the submarine. You can see that they exist, but people just assume it's like, well, they're filled with nuclear warheads. But that's not necessarily the case.
With a Scottish captain.
Right? Yeah. Like Star
That
Trek.
was a Hunt for Red October joke. You know, like Sean Connery playing a Russian sub UFO
love that
captain.
Yeah.
With a Scottish accent. It's just
I'm a sucker for Tom Clancy, so I love shit like that.
I mean, if there's ever, you got a good point though. If there ever was a time for some sort of a blue beam alien contact thing, it's probably soon. It's probably like in the next couple of months. Like this is the perfect storm for something like that to happen.
I don't think they're good enough at faking it yet.
You don't think so? I mean,
That could be
faking
true.
A lot of stuff.
Well, for the average person, I mean, you know, AI
Yeah.
is fooling tons of people.
Yeah.
Their ability to discern is rapidly eroding.
I agree. I think if you're going to convince anybody, like they're pretty much ready to convince people at this point. I mean, you got.
No, what were you saying before though?
Don't
about
fall
that?
for it.
Yeah, don't fall for it. But about what you were saying before, how like there's a tangent between nuclear submarines and possible use cases for them as like spaceships, pretty much. Like,
Yeah, I mean, like a spaceship is basically a submarine. Like it looks very similar. It has a rocket on it, but do you need a rocket? Can a rocket get through the ionosphere, for the Van Allen belt, through the firmament? Like whatever, can it get through this VLF band of
NASA
nuclear?
trains underwater for space.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did you see that movie Underwater with Kristen Stewart? There's this new movie called, not new, it's a couple years old, but Underwater. And they go down like 7 miles deep and they're at some sort of a mining station at the bottom of the floor of the ocean. And they end up opening the ground up and there's like psychotic mermaids and like Cthulhu and stuff like that. But it looks, it's an interesting movie, especially the 7 mile thing and being close to hell. But this idea that everything that we think of about space, like they're using these pressure suits like sponge divers used, and it's so much more convincing and believable because it's not in outer space. If this movie was about outer space and them trying to escape a breaking space station, it's like meh. But because it's about an underwater base, there's a lot more reality to it. It feels like something that could actually happen on a lot of levels. And I think that's a big thing, is the idea that you could open a portal or a Stargate or something. That would make the most sense. That you go, there's a story about Burning Man, the Pyramid Lake, that some people have swam into these deep holes in Pyramid Lake and come out in Lake Tahoe just almost instantaneously. That there are just kind of space-time folds between certain places, almost like wormholes, right?
But as for submarines being like sent to space, like you said rockets, but like I think it was I forgot who it was. Maybe it was Q, but they were saying like one of the free energy aspects of it was hiding anti-gravitic technology. So like if you could get a functioning nuclear submarine, just slap one of these handy devices on, and it'll just float up into space. Yeah,
or even just go there. So
Yeah.
if you're using anti-gravity, we've talked to a lot of people like Jeremy Reese about this idea of electromagnetic spin state, that you could actually change the density or the electromagnetic spin state so that what we experience as gravity, which is basically buoyancy anyway, that we could just reverse it or control where something ends up almost instantaneously. And if you could move a satellite, a submarine just to any place, well, it would, as far as we describe space, like a pressurized vacuum. I mean, a submarine does really well under extreme pressure. It's exactly the right thing for something in a really heavy pressure environment. So if there were places or dimensions or realms or space or anything like that, basically being in a submarine would be the perfect vehicle to go from to keep your acclimated, pressurized Earth-like experience. I mean, this is the whole point of a submarine, is that it can exist in places that are extremely dynamic to our normal environment. If you're in a place where you would normally implode, but you can keep your own pressure. So, I mean, there's definitely no reason to be convinced that every submarine is filled with nuclear warheads. I think that's another one that's pretty much, they want you to think that about every submarine, which is a great explanation. Like, well, it's for defense, it's for war. You don't need to know what's really going on. You should just feel safe because it exists. Don't ask too many questions because you could ruin your own safety. But that keeps you from looking into what else could be in those machines, right?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
there's no spike in cancer rates at Nagasaki or Hiroshima, and they started rebuilding right after. Fukushima didn't wipe out all the life in the Pacific. Chernobyl is a thriving ecosystem, which has been proven by 4K drones. Big bombs exist. Big bombs exist, no doubt about it, and dirty bombs as well. But you get into Einsteinian physics. Which gravity are you talking about? Newtonian or Einsteinian? Bendy space-time. There's much, but you were talking about, anti-gravitics. I mean, there's a experiment that was done by Zachary Zabala, which is really interesting, where you have two Gaussian surfaces, and our Earth has a negative electric charge, and there seems to be something up there. Call it a firmament or the ionosphere or whatever you want, but if that's your second Gaussian surface and you just reverse the polarity, things go up. And he's shown this with non-magnetic materials, where he's just got electrodes going to the Gaussian surfaces, and then he reverses the polarity of the current, and all of a sudden, instead of things hanging out down here, they just go up. So anti-gravitics might be as simple as something like that. And also, just to add, the supposed strong force of gravity as compared to electrostatics, this is mainstream science. Like, if I rub a balloon and it sticks to my head, or I stick it to the wall, that force is 10 to the 36 stronger than the supposed strong force of gravity. That's kind of important.
What do you think about space-time folding? Oh yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I was just thinking about reasons to suppress this technology, because that's what makes it. That's my lean into how it could be plausible. Like, if it is possible, or if it is accessible to humanity, then the application would, I guess, mean loss of control for global superpowers, right? Like petrol, for example, they have a vice grip on our entire global energy economy, and if something something a lot more profound and cleaner is possible, then that kind of makes them redundant, and that's just one example.
Even here,
it's a
just
combination
about nuclear technology. Please go on.
No, I was just going to say it's a combination of fear porn with manufactured scarcity.
Yeah.
I think also that if you get people to buy power, then you can use up all of their money, and you can eventually get them to a point where they have no more private property, which is a gradual thing if they're using up all their money to buy energy. But also the companies that you were talking about, like petroleum companies, they've changed their names, like British Petroleum, Beyond Petroleum. All of these companies are heavily invested in control free energy tech. It's probable that they're using most of that already. And America, with the Operation Stargate, not the original one about space-time, but I think it's related, AI city that the Trump wants to build with OpenAI. It's gonna be a big nuclear power plant. They're turning back on 3 Mile Island and everything, so they can get as much free energy as they need to make cat pictures for AI, right? Because that's the incentive people needed. And running an AI system that's like a super intelligence. I know a lot of people don't believe that AI is going to become a super intelligence, but you got this face. Go ahead.
No, nothing. I think the main important point, not debating about AI, we did that often enough, and its sentience or not, but just the idea, if it is true that nuclear technology and especially the dangers have been greatly exaggerated, including the idea of nuclear waste, and actually there is ways to deal with it, or it can even be reused, then it is interesting what is the real opposition between the so-called petrol-based mafia, whatever, and the nuclear operators, for lack of a better term, which is, in my understanding, just advanced steam power. And if that actually were a thing we could use, we may have something already that can create amazing amounts of electricity at a quite low price, and you don't even need 100 million layers of shielding for it, and just basic safety measures. And it could be a clean and very efficient and almost abundant energy, if that is true.
I think that's what nuclear power plants are. I think they're steam. Because if you drive a shaft down, you were talking about, going down deep. I mean, the Kola borehole is only 8 miles deep, and it took them 20 years to dig. Didn't they cap it because they were hearing screaming demons or something? Like that's the story goes. But the point is that the further down you go, the hotter it gets, to the point where it melts drill bits. So they've never gotten below 8 miles in all of our years on Earth. So, if you drive a shaft down and you have a water source that's never ending, and you send water down, it gets down there, it's hot enough to turn that water to steam. The conversion rate between a liter of water and a liter of steam is 1,700 to 1. So it's a massive expansion as water goes to steam. So that's all you need, is another shaft coming up that's connected and turns turbines. So that could be what nuclear power plants are ultimately. There's a lot of old buildings they're powering themselves in that fashion. There's a guy in New York City who was getting a Lifetime Achievement Award for his work in the air conditioning, heating, electrical field with working on these old buildings, and he was describing exactly what I just described, and that the buildings themselves were powering themselves through geothermal heat.
I just want to say it's so funny how mundane and innocuous you think of, like, oh, they're just an energy conglomerate. They just control like sectors of energy, and like that's a big fucking deal. Like that's a huge part of the fabric of reality, the energy. Like if you control energy, you control people, you control reality almost.
How much do you believe in time being? Do you believe in atomic reactive bump? Like, do you believe that time exists in a non-linear state, or that we are maybe experiencing linear time, even though there's something more potential than just linear time?
I mean, I could only speak on this through like psychological experience, and I think it's possible on an individual level to make contact with your past and future selves. Because maybe it's not so linear as in it's just one branch to a future. Maybe there's multiple possible futures. So in that sense, like if you can like conjure future selves, maybe you can bridge a psychic connection. I mean, what makes that any less real than one of the many possible futures? As far as making contact with your past, like we do it by forgiving our past selves or regretting past actions and maintaining some psychic connection. But I also think in the future, like you write letters to your future self, you give yourself reminders and stuff. I think that's a form of like rational communication, that kind of transcends time.
I like the work a lot of Nima Arkhani Hamed, this guy I met years ago, and he, I think he's at MIT. I forget now, but he goes all over the place, and he was a major physical atomic and subatomic particle theorist. He's a mathematician, but they based their hypothesis of the Higgs boson subatomic particles on his work. And so he was a major reason for CERN doing the experiments the way that they do their experiments. Now, I don't really trust in CERN, but at the same time, I think that they have to base their work on real science and real math as much as they can, at least publicly. I don't know. And I love the work he does talking about spin state and the idea that time itself, or space and time, are both conjecture based on our empirical experiences, which can be completely rewritten as a femto arrangement. So subatomic, underneath nanoscopic, femtoscopic arrangements of all material. And so we experience a logical progression because of radiation. So not even in a dangerous sense, although radiation can totally kill you if you want. I just mean they have radio waves, like active denial system are, ray guns basically using shortwave radio, right? Like this is this ADS. and they directed energy weapons. And it's the same thing as a microwave, the way you use a microwave to heat up your food, and the same kind of 2.6 radiation that they use for cell phones or for wireless phones, that you can direct radio waves at something and you can cause a change that's not expected. It's a synthetic change in the arrangement of material that causes water molecules friction to heat up, essentially, right? The heat ray is another term for it. So the ADS has been used particularly in, did they take all the pictures out? Okay, I was gonna say, they build these giant ray guns that look like a satellite dish. They aim it at you, and
you feel like shit.
Yeah, at a protest or something, you start crying or laughing or headache, or they've even turned this thing way up and hit monkeys in the eyes and made them bleed out their eyes. So
as a slight addition, I think I could recall quite a few stories where they go near somewhere they really shouldn't be, like maybe around Nevada or in the desert, and they feel those symptoms, like suddenly their skin gets hot or they get really nauseous, they get random headaches. I don't know. It sounds a lot to me like this ADS weapon system at work. Maybe, I don't know.
Definitely. I mean, maybe not definitely in every circumstance, but
yeah,
it does sound like that, doesn't it? And I think it can be used for other reasons, right? So one of the reasons I pulled up Hamed, check out Neiman's videos talking about this, because if you could control the way your time crystals work, and right now I think we're using the sun as the major source of radiation. So there's a linear chronological time and a map of space that we're experiencing that's based on the way things are arranged and the effects of radiation that force the next change. This is what's causing next moment from this moment. And there's a succession of moments because of a succession of arrangements of all the same material that's always existed, right? All material that's ever existed, all mass is eternal, but it changes its arrangement. And you can rearrange things in different ways. You could rearrange them exactly or very close to the way they were arranged at another point in time, or you could skip a step and say, well, eventually things are going to end up like this. So let's just arrange everything in the same way that things will eventually be in, let's say, 100 years, if we understand with supercomputers how radiation will affect time in that sense. I think this is probably what's going to happen with the singularity. This is what Ray Kurzweil talks about, is this idea that we're going to hit a singularity. And I don't think singularity is just this abstract idea. It's that concrete moment where if you have an idea, you can instantaneously produce it just like that. You have an idea, AI helps you make the idea into a plan. The plan can be realized by a machine, and all this can happen instantaneously. That's really, I think, the idea of the singularity. Let's say I want to be a woman. I tell the computer, it makes a pill. I take the pill. I'm instantly a woman. That's the singularity.
I want to be a cheetah. Turn me into a cheetah.
I want to be a dolphin that can breathe air. I want be dry. I want to be young again. Take my DNA, like figure out what it would be like to have younger DNA. Just figure out what changes have happened. This is a dream.
Sounds like living in the fourth dimension. It's like you pretty much reduce the speed of light, so it's like everything just happens at once. You could look at something, you see the past and future versions of it simultaneously.
But what would be the things you would need to do? Let's say that there is this sun, and the sun is actually causing like a ray of radiation that's causing continuity of linear time. What would be the first thing you have to get rid of in order to not have something affect you so that you can exist outside of linear time? You'd have to get rid of the sun, right? So you block out the sun. And once the sun's gone, then you can control the flow of radiation, and you can control the continuity of arrangements of space-time. So this would be like a dimension X. Like, it's not necessarily the dimension the way we think of dimensions, but it is the idea that you could rearrange space-time to anywhere you want. So you would be something that's outside of time.
Adjusting your coordinates. It's not just where you are. It's also, you could adjust when you are by turning a separate knob.
Well, we're basically at the 2-hour point anyway. I don't know. I just wanted to...
That implies that space-time exists.
That's what I was asking you, like, what do you think about that? What do you think do you believe that time, what do you think's happening? Like, what do you think you're living in?
I have no idea, but I don't think it's that.
Fair. Yeah.
I've seen no evidence that supports Einsteinian physics.
Yeah, I think Einstein definitely lied a lot about Lemaire's work. I think Lemaire had a better grasp on what was happening. But I don't think it's completely. I think lies are often about the truth. I think that's a lot about what we've been talking about today. That there's always like a kernel there of truth in it. It's not necessarily the way we're told it, but that's probably trade secrets to keep us from being able to go down the right path and figure out how to command our own destiny.
I feel that.
Well, let's start to wrap it up. I mean, you can check the news yourself, everybody. Trump just posted it. You can read about what's going on. It's pretty bad, but like prayers for Charlie's family. It's
Prayers for them. Yeah.
And prayers for everybody.
Just want to say, you see people posting like, "Oh, you don't know what the Democrats have done. You guys don't know what if you've done. The war is on now." No, guys. Like, the Democrats didn't do this. You don't need to make up some fictitious war and start shooting other people. So I really hope, I hope Chris is right and nothing happens because of this, because a lot of people are saying a lot of stupid shit right now. So.
Well, I didn't say nothing would happen. I said nothing policy-wise would probably happen, but I do think people are going to get really pissed off, like really upset. They're already upset. I mean, what am I saying?
And it's September 11th, so it's a perfect time for people to pivot this into some sort of a psychological operation to...
Yeah, true. Who knows, man?
It's going to be crazy. Well... Yeah. Let's close up. I'm going to say, thank you guys for being here. It's a crazy day. It's a weird episode for me because I wasn't really prepared for this to happen right as I went on the stream, but I'm stoked that Stellium
on 9/11 Eve, no less. What the fuck?
On 9/11 Eve, man. Like usually when I'm laying out my socks for George Washington to come put joints and cherries in it, because George Washington shows up every 9/11. He helps people out. And also on my birthday, President's Day, the day after. But Stellium, do you have any words of wisdom that you want to share before you pop out?
No, but I'll plug my book. Again, it's coming out in a week. Launches on 17th of September. 1 month shy of a 40-year anniversary. I was busted on October 17th, 1985. So it's been a long time coming, this book. It's available for pre-order on Kindle. The paperback and the Kindle version both released on the same day. So it's a fun read, and any teen that likes to read would love it, but it's really written from the perspective of an adult reflecting on those times. And I think it's a fun book. You'll enjoy it.
I highly plug this for kids too, actually. I mean, I'm going to finish reading it, but the style in which Mike writes is really fun and kind of whimsical, but also it talks about really interesting things and kind of very good world building. So if you're young and you want to understand computers, you want to understand the world, the way the world is now, this is what the world grew into. It grew from this. This is the way the world became that. When Mike was looking for journals and stuff, he's Googling himself, trying to find this stuff. There's not a lot there because at that point, things were still Xeroxed and carbon copied and physical. Microfilms, yeah.
Yeah. They went digital with newspaper archives 3 years after. So I still have all the original newspaper articles because I clipped them out and saved them.
But your former hirers
pretty much
did not.
Nobody knows any of the details of this other than what the newspapers released. And I, except for the interview I did with you a few years ago, I've never spoken really about this publicly. So now it's coming out, and hopefully will be a movie at some point.
You're never going to get hired at Microsoft again. No, I'm pretty sure they like you even more if they read this. They're probably like, oh, really? We had that guy? He's so great. We should get him back.
It didn't make it into the book, but I got hired in, what was it? 2001. I was working for IBM in Rome as a tech writer. When they interviewed me, I didn't mention it. So yeah. Anyway.
Dude, we need to get a microfiche machine so we can
Yeah.
start going.
The
through
first
lost-
computer I ever got my hands on was a pet Commodore.
Dude,
And you pull that up, the pet Commodore.
did you hear that some guy bought Commodore and he's gonna start making Commodores again?
I didn't know.
I'll send you the link. There's a
Yeah,
really cool
that
guy
wasn't
who-
the model. It was the other one that has the scrunched keyboard. That would have been.
Oh,
Yeah,
this guy.
that was what I had. Yep, that was the first computer I used.
God, it's like an
40
easy bake oven. for-
40
big
character
boys.
screen, and I was typing for hours and hours this code that I got from some Radio Shack magazine, and didn't know that I had to save it. So I went to come back the next day. Yeah, they were at the public library. That was the first computer I got access to.
I think we
Nice.
live in a really good time for tinkerers because like every manufactured piece of anything is pretty much out there on eBay. You could get custom PCBs. So like if you know how to design your own circuit boards, and you could just send the specs over to, it's probably something called PCBmart.com or something, and they'll print it for you. And you could have like every kind of interface. You could have like ribbon circuit boards. You could have all sorts of shit, I'm sure. And you add that, and with like I think it's like Raspberry Pis. I don't know. I've just been like going into deep dives on these guys. They're like, I invented my own phone, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? And he literally takes apart like an Android Razor, and then he just completely re-engineers it. I'm like, oh, I guess you could do that these days. Interesting.
This guy from Retro Recipes, ex-Commodore, I think he did special effects for Star Wars in the old days, back in, not old days, but like 2005, like episode 1, 2, and 3, episode 2 and 3 for sure. He worked on. I think he's even a Jedi extra in one of the scenes.
There's
And
my
so
old Mac.
Yeah, he's got all of them. He has it all, and he ended up buying the license because he was working with all these homebrew people that were building Commodore stuff, and he's building a kind of Commodore guild of people, all these companies that make products for Commodores. That if you have a Commodore and you want to connect it to a USB or have an SD card for your memory, or have all of your digital storage as analog sound recorded for your tape reader, but actually have it connected to a larger, audio player to do it. And they're building new Commodores, and he's going to save the brand because he just loves Commodore so much. He's just it's his whole, it's what it empowered him as a kid and gave him this dream of the future. And I think it's pretty cool. He's a pretty chill guy. We should probably get him on the show at some point to talk about what he's doing, because they have the updated Commodore operating system, and Amiga, which is my favorite Commodore, right? The Amiga, only Amiga can make your dreams possible. Only Amiga can make it happen. Like I'm a big fan
All of the
Amiga.
division in society that we see today started with that Apple versus Commodore, feud.
It's true. The whole war
just spiraled out of control.
And Commodore was better.
Can't we all be friends?
Amiga was better than an Apple, and you had the video toaster, dude. We have to talk about that someday. I love video toaster so much. Just if you ever wonder what I love, it's the video toaster. But let's all say something positive for a second. I'm super stoked that you're all here. I think things are going really well, at least in terms of communication and community. F-Chat is super great. I really appreciate that we're doing F-Chat and that we have the opportunity to talk about this stuff in an uncensored space. I hope you guys are jumping into the F-Chat more. It looks like we're doing really well. We have a huge amount of comments all the time. It's super rad. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being there. Thank you for getting us views on Kick, on Twitch, on X, on YouTube, and watching our Bosnian Pyramid videos. So thanks for hanging out with us. It's super rad. I appreciate you guys. And I'm thankful for Mike visiting, because we're going to hang out soon. He just invited me to Spain. I got to deal with my visa, but I'm going to come back and we'll hang out soon. We'll do something with Conspiracy Music Guru. Alex, one of the greatest musicians of our time, made some amazing dubstep ringtones that you guys need to check out. Like amongst his,
he was
free
the OG.
information.
He had several in the top 10 on iTunes. Like, early on, he was doing the best ringtones in the world.
I feel like I got in trouble because of him once. I can't be sure. Because I had a phone at one point, and I was at a pre-Vatican II, like a Vatican I style Latin mass. I was about to get Eucharist, and I was in line to get the Eucharist. I have my hands like this, and all of us, because you have to get down on your knees and all this stuff. And all of a sudden, my phone ringtone goes off at 6:30 in the morning because it was one of those early masses, and it's like, and I'm like, oh God, oh God, oh my God. So I blame Alex for that.
I'll
Do you
tell
have
him.
anything you want to say something positive, Jordan?
Yeah,
You do?
thank you guys for keeping me distracted for a few hours. I always enjoy our discussions. I always love seeing you guys. Mike, it was a pleasure to meet you. I'd love to talk to you again. I'm definitely going to have to check your book out. Yeah, I just hope you guys all stay safe and stay healthy, and we keep these interesting conversations going and keep putting out some good learning material for the masses.
Raph, you got some
Sounds
thoughts?
great.
I also just say thanks everyone on panel for joining, everyone in chat for joining, commenting, supporting whatever you do. We appreciate you all. Thank you very much, Mike, for joining us today as well. And I'm very much looking forward to the audiobook and, of course, the screen adaptation. Thank you.
Oh, man.
What about you, Chris?
I guess I want to say I very much so appreciate. I mean, 2 hours is like a long time, especially nowadays when time seems to be speeding up. So I really do appreciate the fact that you guys pretty much sit through a whole movie with us. So thank you so much for that. And God willing, we'll see you next week.
Yeah, right. And remember, everybody, like, we have solutions is the title, but there really is only one solution. I'm pretty sure Chris has come up with it. He's pretty right about it, which is gratitude is the solution. You have to be grateful. Like, figure out what you can be grateful of, and that'll liberate your mind and make you free. So, and love to Charlie's family.
Just
God bless you
remember,
guys.
in Lakesh, you know, you are another me, I am another you.
It's true.
We're all one.
Flashing that. And yeah, we love you, man. Like, good
Rest in
journey.
peace, bro.
Good journey out there. We love you.
There's